The Galveri Confederacy was feared across 3 sectors of the galaxy. For centuries, they had conquered species after species, adding each to their ever-growing empire. Their philosophy was simple: the strong rule, the weak serve. Admiral Davik stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Conqueror. His gray skin glistened under the blue lights as his 4 eyes focused on the holographic display floating before him. His mouth tentacles twitched with interest at the unknown vessel that had appeared at the edge of their territory. "Magnify," he ordered, his deep voice echoing across the silent bridge. The image zoomed in on a sleek ship of unfamiliar design. It was smaller than the Conqueror, with smooth lines and what appeared to be scientific equipment mounted on its exterior. Commander Vex approached, holding a data tablet. "Our scans are complete, Admiral. The vessel belongs to a species we have not encountered before. They call themselves humans. The ship appears to be a colony or exploration vessel with minimal weapons. Their technology is at least 2 generations behind ours." Davik's upper eyes narrowed while his lower ones continued studying the display. Life signs, approximately 150 beings. Their biological readings suggest they are oxygen brothers, carbon-based, with relatively fragile physical structures. A slow, predatory smile spread across Davik's face, his tentacles curling with pleasure. "Perfect. The High Command will be pleased with a new species to add to our workforce. Their first contact with Galactic Society will be submission to the Confederacy." He turned to his war officer. "Prepare 3 boarding parties. I want the ship captured intact with minimal damage to the potential slaves." "Yes, Admiral," the officer responded, already dispatching orders through his neural link. Davik watched as the boarding vessels prepared to launch. This would be routine. Another species to be broken, another technological base to be absorbed, another victory for his already impressive record. "Another easy conquest for the Confederacy," he remarked to no one in particular. Across space, aboard the United Nations scout ship Defiant, Captain Park stood calmly at the command center. He was not a tall man, but his presence filled the room. 2 decades of service in the Space Force had earned him the respect of everyone aboard. "The alien vessel is still on approach vector," reported Officer Kim, her fingers dancing across the sensor controls. "They've ignored all 17 of our greeting transmissions." Park nodded thoughtfully. The Defiant was on a routine exploration mission, charting this previously unexplored sector. First contact situations were always delicate, but something about this one felt wrong. "What do we know about them?" he asked. Science Officer Sung looked up from his station. "Their ship design matches nothing in our database. Energy readings suggest advanced weapons systems, all powered up. Their size indicates a military vessel. They're launching smaller craft," Security Chief Bai announced, her voice tense. She was the youngest senior officer aboard, but Park trusted her instincts. 3 vessels on direct approach to our position. Their energy signatures match boarding craft we've seen used by pirates near the Centauri colonies. The bridge fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. Captain Park walked slowly to the main view screen, studying the approaching alien mothership. It was massive, at least 5 times the size of the Defiant, with obvious weapon emplacements along its hull. The 3 smaller ships were accelerating toward them, their intent clear. "They think we're an easy target," Park said quietly. "A simple exploration vessel, far from home, with no backup." First Officer Kim looked concerned. "Sir, we are an exploration vessel." Park turned to face his crew, a small smile forming on his lips. "Officially, yes." He pressed his palm against the command console. The computer scanned his handprint and voice as he stated, "Captain Park, authorization code Theta 97 Echo. Initiate protocol watchdog." The lights on the bridge dimmed momentarily as systems throughout the ship began to change. Hidden compartments opened in the walls, revealing advanced weapon stations. The scientific sensors reconfigured, their components shifting to form defensive shield generators. "All hands," Park announced shipwide. "This is not a drill. Prepare for hostile boarding action." Combat teams to your stations. Engineering, begin power rerouting to defensive systems. He turned to his officers, who were already moving with practiced efficiency to their battle stations. They think we're defenseless, Park said, his eyes fixed on the approaching boarding craft. Let's not disappoint them. Yet, on the Conqueror, Admiral Davik watched with satisfaction as his boarding vessels closed in on their prey. Soon, another species would learn the price of meeting the Galvary Confederacy. He had no idea that this day would change the course of galactic history forever. The 3 Galvary boarding ships locked onto the human vessel like metal parasites. Their magnetic clamps secured them firmly to the hull of the Defiant. Inside each boarding craft, elite warriors prepared for what they believed would be an easy conquest. Squad leader Krell stood tall among his soldiers. His gray-green skin was covered in ceremonial battle markings, and his 4 arms each carried a different weapon. The warriors of his squad were the best in the fleet, veterans who had subdued dozens of alien species. Remember the mission, Krell growled to his troops. The Admiral wants the ship intact and some specimens alive for study. Disable their systems, secure the command center, and round up the humans. His soldiers nodded, checking their weapons one final time. The cutting torch at the connection point finished its work, carving through the Defiant's hull. With a hiss of escaping air and a shower of sparks, the entry point was created. Pitiful resistance expected, Krell announced as the breach widened. These humans have never faced the Confederacy. They will learn submission today. The Galvary poured through the opening, 20 warriors in heavy assault armor moving with practiced efficiency. Their helmet sensors scanned for life signs and weapons, finding numerous humans, but detecting few energy signatures that matched known weapon types. Deep inside the Defiant's command center, Captain Park sat calmly in his chair. The ship's internal sensors showed the boarding party's progress in real time. They've breached Deck C, Section 7, Officer Kim reported. 3 entry points. Park nodded and activated the ship-wide communication system. All hands, implement contingency theta. This is not a drill. Throughout the vessel, the human crew moved with quiet determination. What had appeared to be ordinary walls slid open to reveal hidden weapon caches. Scientific equipment transformed, components shifting and reconnecting to form devices, never mentioned in the ship's official specifications. In engineering, Chief Engineer Lee worked rapidly at her console. She was young for her position, but her hands moved with confident precision across the controls. Power grid reconfigured. She reported into her communicator. Gravity plating in Section 4 ready for modulation, Captain. Proceed when they're in position, came Park's steady reply. On Deck C, the Galvary boarding party moved through the corridors with weapons raised. Krell found it strange that they had encountered no resistance yet. Where are they hiding? One of his warriors asked. Probably cowering in safety rooms, another replied with a laugh. These exploration species are always the same. Scientists and researchers, not fighters. The squad turned a corner and found themselves facing 3 humans standing calmly in the middle of the corridor. None appeared armed or armored. One female with short black hair stood slightly ahead of the others. Krell raised his weapon. Surrender immediately, he demanded, his translator converting his words to the human language. The 3 humans didn't move. They didn't look afraid. The female in front, Security Chief Ba, actually smiled slightly. Computer, she said quietly, execute gravity shift. Krell felt a sudden sensation of weightlessness as the artificial gravity disappeared. Before he could activate his magnetic boots, the gravity returned, but wrong. Instead of pulling down, it now pulled up, with triple the normal force. The entire squad was violently slammed against the ceiling, their heavy armor now a crushing burden. Warning lights flashed inside Krell's helmet as the pressure threatened to crack his exoskeleton. Weapons, he shouted, struggling to aim in the inverted gravity. But the humans were gone. No, not gone. Moving. In the altered gravity field, the humans launched themselves from hand grips on the floor, now ceiling, that Krell hadn't noticed before. They wore simple devices on their wrists that seemed to counteract the gravity shift. The first Galveri soldier never saw the human that landed on him. Despite being half his size, the human drove a shock baton into a joint in the alien's armor. The soldier convulsed and fell still. Throughout the corridor, the scene repeated itself. The humans moved with surprising speed and strength, striking with precision at weak points in the Galveri armor. They fought with shocking efficiency, as if they had trained for this exact scenario. Impossible, Krell gasped as he watched half his squad fall in under 30 seconds. He managed to free one arm and fired his plasma rifle, but the shot went wide. A human male landed beside him, dragging something that looked like a scientific tool into the weapon. The rifle sputtered and died. "What are you?" Krell demanded as the human smiled grimly. "Not what you expected," the man replied before delivering a precise strike to Krell's helmet sensor array, plunging him into darkness. On the bridge, Captain Park watched the feeds from all 3 boarding points. The Galveri were being systematically disabled by his crew. "Sir, boarding parties 2 and 3 are reporting similar success," Kim announced. "Minimal injuries to our personnel." Park nodded. "Have security bring their leader to me. It's time we had a proper introduction." In the corridor, Security Chief Ba stood over the unconscious form of Squad Leader Krell. "The first rule of combat," she said to her team as they secured the alien prisoners, "is never underestimate your opponent." Admiral Davik paced the command deck of the Conqueror. His 4 eyes blinked rapidly in sequence, a sign of extreme agitation among his species. The bridge crew kept their distance, focused intently on their tasks, afraid to draw his attention. Before him knelt Sub-Commander Tech, the only survivor from the 3 boarding parties. His armor was damaged, one arm hung useless at his side, and green blood leaked from a wound on his head. "Explain again," Davik hissed, his mouth tentacles writhing with anger. "How did 80 of our best warriors fail against these humans?" Tech kept his gaze on the floor. "They were prepared, Admiral." The ship transformed. What looked like scientific equipment became weapons. They controlled gravity itself against us. "Impossible," Davik snarled. "How could a primitive exploration vessel defeat our elite forces? These humans are newcomers to space. Our intelligence confirmed this." A junior officer approached cautiously. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the human vessel." "Show me," Davik ordered, turning to the main view screen. The screen flickered to life, showing the face of a human male. He appeared calm, almost relaxed, sitting in what must be the command chair of his vessel. "This is Captain Park of the United Nations Scout Ship Defiant," the human said. His voice was steady, showing no fear. "Your unprovoked attack constitutes an act of war against humanity. We are transmitting all records of this encounter to our fleet." Davik's upper eyes narrowed. "You dare threaten the Galveri Confederacy. You are alone, outnumbered, outgunned." The human captain's expression didn't change. "We did not come seeking conflict, Admiral. You attacked without provocation. Under galactic law, we have the right to defend ourselves and report your aggression." "Galactic law?" Davik laughed, a harsh sound that made his officers flinch. "We are the law in this sector. There is no higher authority than Galveri might." Captain Park's eyes hardened slightly. "Then you leave us no choice but to respond with force." "Your vessel is surrounded," Davik countered. "You have no escape." "We're not trying to escape," Park replied simply. Davik cut the transmission with a violent gesture. "Destroy them," he commanded, rage overtaking caution. "Leave no evidence, no witnesses." 3 Galveri warships moved into attack formation around the seemingly helpless human vessel. The Defiant appeared to drift, showing no signs of powering weapons or shields. On the Defiant's bridge, First Officer Kim monitored the enemy movements. "They're taking positions for a coordinated strike," she reported calmly. "All 3 vessels are charging main weapons." Captain Park nodded. "As expected. Status of our systems. All defensive systems online," Security Chief Bay reported. "Countermeasures ready. Weapons locked on primary targets," Tactical Officer Jin added. Park leaned forward slightly in his chair. "Deploy countermeasures." Across the Defiance hull, what had appeared to be standard plating suddenly shifted. Panels slid aside, revealing hidden weapon ports. The dull metal surface rippled as a layer of stealth coating deactivated, exposing the ship's true capabilities. On the Conqueror, alarms blared as sensors detected the sudden change. "Admiral," the sensor officer called out in panic. "The human ship is showing multiple weapons signatures. Energy readings are spiking." "Impossible," Davik whispered, staring at the tactical display. The small exploration vessel was transforming before his eyes into something else entirely. Before the Galveri could react, the Defiant launched its attack. A barrage of missiles erupted from hidden silos, accelerating toward the 3 warships. Unlike conventional weapons, these missiles didn't move in straight lines. They zigzagged, split apart, rejoined, and followed patterns that the Galveri targeting systems couldn't predict. "Evasive maneuvers," Davik shouted, but it was too late. The first warship took 3 direct hits. Its shields flickered and failed. The second missile wave struck its engines, leaving it drifting helplessly. The second warship managed to destroy several missiles, but couldn't track them all. A massive explosion tore through its command section. Davik gripped the edge of the tactical display as his fleet was systematically dismantled by what should have been easy prey. "What are these humans?" he asked, disbelief evident in his voice. On the Defiant, Captain Park watched the battle unfold with grim satisfaction. "Target their weapon systems only," he ordered. "We want to disable, not destroy." "Sir," Communications Officer 1 reported, "we're detecting multiple distress calls from the damaged vessels. They're asking for immediate assistance." Park nodded. "Good. They need to know we could destroy them if we wanted to. Send this message to the Galveri flagship. Admiral Davik, cease fire immediately, or we will be forced to take more permanent action. This is your only warning." As the message was transmitted, Park turned to First Officer Kim. "Prepare a full situation report to send to Fleet Command. Use the emergency quantum channel. It will take at least 3 days for reinforcements to arrive," Kim noted quietly. "Then we'll have to hold out until then," Park replied, studying the damaged but still dangerous Galveri flagship on the view screen. "But first, let's see if they're smart enough to retreat." On the Conqueror, Admiral Davik received the humans' message with growing rage and fear. These were not the actions of a primitive species. This was something else entirely, and for the first time in his long career, Davik felt uncertain about the outcome of a battle. "Admiral," his tactical officer said hesitantly, "should we withdraw to regroup?" "Withdraw?" Davik snarled. "Never. The Confederacy does not retreat." He stabbed a clawed finger at the communications officer. "Send an emergency signal to the battle fleet. We need reinforcements immediately." The bridge of the Defiant fell silent as Officer Choi listened intently to her communications equipment. Her fingers adjusted the controls as she isolated the alien transmission frequencies. "Captain," she said, looking up from her station, "I've intercepted their communications. They're calling for reinforcements. Estimated arrival time is 40 minutes. Captain Park nodded calmly, though the situation was growing more dangerous by the minute. The Galveri flagship remained intact, and despite the damage to its escort vessels, it still outgunned the Defiant. "Status report," Park ordered. Officer Kim checked her console. "We've disabled 2 enemy ships. The third is damaged, but still combat capable. The flagship is undamaged and powering up its main weapons array." As if to confirm her assessment, the Defiant suddenly rocked violently. The lights flickered as a direct hit from the Galveri flagship struck the port side. "Shield integrity at 43%. Science Officer Song reported, his hands racing across his station. Another hit like that, and we'll lose Section 5 completely. Park gripped the arms of his command chair. Options. We could try to outrun them, Tactical Officer Jin suggested. Our engines are still at full capacity. They'd pursue, Security Chief Ba countered. And their ships are faster in straight-line acceleration. Song looked up from his console, a curious expression on his face. Captain, I've been analyzing their attack patterns. They follow standard tactical formations. Very efficient, but predictable. Their targeting algorithms favor certain vectors. Captain Park's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. Predictable enemies can be defeated. Show me. Song sent the analysis to the main screen. The Galveri attack patterns appeared as glowing lines crisscrossing a three-dimensional grid. Clear patterns emerged in how they positioned their ships and fired their weapons. They've been fighting the same way for centuries, Song explained. Against less advanced civilizations, it's been effective, but they don't adapt quickly to new situations. Park smiled grimly. Then let's be unpredictable. Engineer Lee, what's the status of the experimental spatial fold drive? In engineering, Chief Engineer Lee looked up from her console with surprise. The experimental drive was the Defiant's most closely guarded secret, a prototype technology that allowed for micro-jumps through space without entering full faster-than-light travel. The drive is functional, Captain, she replied through the comlink. But it's not what it was designed for. We've only tested it for scientific survey jumps, not combat maneuvers. Innovation, engineer, Park responded firmly. It's what humans do best. Lee hesitated only briefly before her training took over. Yes, sir. Reconfiguring drive parameters now. I can give you controlled jumps of up to 2,000 meters with a 15-second recharge between jumps. Perfect. Tactical. Prepare firing solutions to coordinate with jump points. Navigation. Plot a series of jump coordinates around the Galveri ships. Focus on their blind spots. The crew worked rapidly, their hands flying over controls as they prepared for a maneuver never before attempted in combat. Ready, Captain, Kim announced. Park took a deep breath. Execute jump pattern alpha. The stars outside the viewports suddenly shifted as the Defiant disappeared from its position and reappeared instantly 1,000 meters to starboard of the Galveri flagship. Before the alien vessel could adjust its weapons, the Defiant fired a concentrated barrage at its sensor array. Direct hit. Jump 2, Park ordered. Again, the Defiant vanished, reappearing beneath the alien vessel. Another precision strike, this time against the flagship's main weapon emplacements. On the Conqueror, Admiral Davik gripped his command rail in disbelief. Warning lights flashed across his bridge as systems failed one after another. What's happening? He demanded. Where is their ship? They're using some kind of short-range teleportation technology, his science officer reported, voice trembling. Our targeting systems can't lock onto them. Impossible, Davik hissed. No species has mastered combat teleportation. The view screen showed the human vessel appearing and disappearing around his ship, each time striking with perfect accuracy before vanishing again. 2 more of his support vessels had been completely disabled, their engines and weapons destroyed by surgical strikes. What manner of demons are these humans? Davik whispered as his once mighty squadron was systematically taken apart by a single vessel. On the Defiant, the mood was tense but focused. They had the advantage now, but the clock was ticking toward the arrival of Galveri reinforcements. Engineering reports the drive is overheating, Kim warned. 2 more jumps at most before we need to let it cool. Park nodded. Make them count. Target their communications array and main engines. The Defiant made 2 final jumps, striking with precision. The Galveri flagship's lights flickered as its main power systems failed. Direct hits on all targets, Jin reported with satisfaction. The flagship is disabled, but life support remains intact. Park allowed himself a moment of relief. Stand down to condition yellow. Damage report. Minor damage to decks 3 and 4, Kim replied. Medical reports 6 injuries, none critical. Their brief celebration was interrupted by a blaring alarm from the sensor station. "Captain," Song called out, his voice tense. Multiple spatial distortions forming at Mark 347. Park's heart sank. "The Galvary reinforcements are early." "No, sir," Song replied, his expression changing to confusion. "These signatures don't match Galvary drive patterns." On the main view screen, space itself seemed to ripple and tear. 5, then 10, then 15 vessels emerged from faster-than-light travel. Their sleek designs were instantly recognizable. "They're human ships," Kim said, disbelief in her voice. "That's the 7th Fleet. They shouldn't be here for days." The largest of the new arrivals, a massive battle cruiser, hailed them immediately. The face of Admiral Kang appeared on screen. Defiant, "This is the UNSS Intrepid. Sorry, we're late to the party. Your distress beacon came through on the new quantum relay network. Looks like you've been busy." Captain Park couldn't hide his relief. "Admiral, your timing is impeccable." Kang smiled. "We picked up everything that happened here. The diplomatic courts will be very interested in your recordings." His expression hardened. "Now, about these aliens who thought attacking the human vessel was a good idea." On the damaged Galvary flagship, a new alert sounded on the command deck. Admiral Davik stared in horror at the tactical display showing 15 human warships surrounding his position. For the first time in the history of the Galvary Confederacy, Admiral Davik considered the unthinkable: surrender. The massive human battleship UNSS Retribution moved into position at the front of the human fleet. Its black hull absorbed the starlight, making it look like a hole in space. 12 other warships formed a perfect half-circle around it. Together, they created a wall of human military might that no one could miss. On the bridge of the Retribution, Admiral Hand stood tall and proud. He was an older man with gray hair cut short and a face marked by years of service. His uniform was simple, but his presence commanded respect. "Open a channel to all ships in the area," he ordered. His communications officer nodded. "Channel open, sir." Admiral Han looked directly at the camera. His voice was calm but firm. "This is Admiral Han of the United Nations Space Force. Galvary vessels, power down your weapons immediately. Any hostile action will be met with overwhelming force." The message echoed across space, transmitted in both human language and the Galvary tongue. Just as Han finished speaking, new alarms sounded. Space twisted and folded as 5 large Galvary war cruisers emerged from faster-than-light travel. They were the reinforcements Admiral Davik had called for. The Galvary ships immediately realized they had jumped into a trap. Instead of finding a single damaged human vessel, they faced 16 human warships in battle formation. On the bridge of the Conqueror, Admiral Davik stared at the tactical display with growing horror. His 4 eyes blinked rapidly, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. The humans weren't an isolated colony or a lone exploratory ship. They were an established, advanced spacefaring civilization with a powerful fleet. "All vessels, stand down," he finally ordered, his voice barely audible. "Power down weapons. Send the surrender signal." His second-in-command stared at him in shock. "Admiral, the High Command will." "The High Command isn't here," Davik snapped. "I am, and I will not sacrifice more ships and crews to a battle we cannot win." 3 days later, Admiral Davik stood before a hastily assembled emergency session of the Galactic Council. Representatives from 27 spacefaring civilizations sat in a semicircle, watching him with cold eyes. The evidence provided by the Defiance logs played on large screens for all to see. The Galvary's unprovoked aggression was undeniable. "For centuries," the Council elder said, her voice echoing in the chamber, "the Galvary Confederacy has claimed to be bringing order to the galaxy. Now we see the truth. You have been conquering peaceful species through force and deception." Davik remained silent. There was nothing he could say. The human representative, Ambassador Yun, spoke next. The United Nations does not seek war, but we will defend ourselves and others from aggression. The Galveri territories must be opened. All subjugated species must be freed. What followed was the most significant peace treaty in 500 years of galactic history. The Galveri Confederacy was forced to release its hold on 12 formerly independent species. Trade routes were opened. Military bases were dismantled. 6 months later, Captain Park stood on the observation deck of Diplomatic Station Harmony. The space station floated at the edge of what had once been Galveri space. Through the large windows, he could see ships of many designs coming and going freely. First Officer Kim joined him, handing him a cup of coffee. "They're calling it the Defiant Incident now," she said with a small smile. "The history texts will say this is how humanity announced itself to the galaxy." Park took a sip from his cup. "Not how we planned our first contact, but perhaps how it needed to be." "Would you have done anything differently?" Kim asked. Park thought for a moment. "No. We defended ourselves without destroying them. That matters." Their conversation was interrupted as a delegation approached. They were Veshtai, one of the species long oppressed by the Galveri. The Veshtai were tall, with blue skin and 4 arms. They moved with a natural grace that made them seem to float across the floor. The lead Veshtai bowed respectfully. "Captain Park," she said in careful human language, "I am Ambassador Leary. My people have waited many years for this day." Park bowed in return. "It is an honor to meet you, Ambassador. For generations, the Galveri kept us isolated, told us we were alone in the stars except for them." Leary explained. "Now we know the truth. There are many peoples among the stars, and some, like yours, are willing to stand for what is right." Her large eyes studied Park carefully. "Your people stood against the Confederacy and prevailed when no others could. Would humans be willing to help others do the same?" Park exchanged a meaningful glance with Kim before answering. "That's precisely why we're here, Ambassador. To build a galaxy where strength protects the weak, not exploits them." "Then perhaps," Leary said, her voice filled with hope, "the stars will be safer for all of us." As the ambassador spoke, more delegations entered the observation deck. Species that had been enemies for centuries now gathered under the protection of human diplomacy. Old hatreds were set aside as new possibilities emerged. Park looked out at the stars beyond the station. The Defiant had set out to explore strange new worlds and make peaceful contact with new civilizations. They had achieved that goal, though not in the way they expected. Sometimes, he reflected, the most important message of peace is the willingness to defend it. The end.